and we'll go straight along to the next meeting, which was supposed to start 4 minutes ago, but I think that's okay. So just for the record, Yarra City Council, I'll just do the acknowledgement of country again. Acknowledges the Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung people as the traditional owners and true sovereigns of the land known as Yarra. We acknowledge the Creator Spirit Bunjil, their ancestors and their elders. We acknowledge the strength and resilience of the Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung, who have never ceded sovereignty and retained their strong connection to family, clan and country despite the impacts of European invasion. We also acknowledge the significant contributions made by other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people to life in Yarra. We pay our respects to elders from all nations here today and to their elders past, present and future. We've got all the councillors here today. We've got all the staff here today. The CEO and Ms Osman are going to take the questions. I've got Brooke Colbert sitting right next to me. We'll do the declarations of interest again. Councillors, in accordance with our process, will ask each of you to make a conflict of interest declaration. You may respond, I do, to the following question. Do you declare that you have familiarised yourself with the matters being presented to this council and that you do not have a conflict of interest? Councillor Davies.
I do.
Councillor Gomez.
I do.
Councillor Ho.
I do.
Councillor McKenzie. Councillor Jolly. I do. Councillor Harrison.
I do.
Councillor Crossland.
I do.
Councillor Wade.
I do.
Councillor Aston.
I do.
We'll move on. Thank you. We'll move on to Council Business Report. There is one agenda item only. 4.1 Elizabeth Street Bike Lane Trial Update. Clarification of the resolution of the last council meeting. I think it's on the screen, or it will be soon, Patrick. Thank you so much. And it goes a bit further, so maybe after about 20 seconds, move it lower down and so on. Okay, so before we go to moving, seconding and debating this motion, I'm going to ask councillors if they've got questions to officers. Any questions? Okay, well, I'm going to happily move that recommendation. That motion, I should say. I've got a seconder, Councillor Ho. There are some tabled.
I have an amendment. Is it okay if I table it now and then you talk, or what's?
Yeah, no, we'll take the amendments now. Yeah.
All right. So I circulated this earlier today. Look, it's just to add in at the end as well to complete a review of the parking restrictions. I'll speak to it if it's not accepted. Otherwise, that's it.
Well, it's not acceptable to me. Is it acceptable to the seconder? Councillor Ho, do you accept it or not? You do accept it? You don't accept it? Okay. The one that's in yellow, it's a suggested amendment from Deputy Mayor McKenzie. So that's not accepted. Councillor McKenzie, would you like to move it as a standalone?
Yeah, I'll move it.
Thank you. If you've got a seconder, well, maybe just read out what it is and explain without speaking to it, and then if there's a seconder, I'll give you 3 minutes to speak to it.
Okay, so it's just to add on to this, to complete a review of the parking restrictions around the area. It's pulled from some of the other options that we were giving last time, and the purpose is to do a review because there may be a delay between these plans actually going and happening, those issues that people raised last time about not having parking will continue.
Thank you. Is there a seconder to that? Councillor Wade is seconding that, so you can now, got 3 minutes to speak to that. Thank you.
I think I've made that pretty clear. I think that there might be a delay between these plans actually becoming a permanent part of the infrastructure there, and in that meantime I think it would be useful to explore other options around the area. Adds into this motion, doesn't take anything away.
Thank you. Councillor Wade, seconding it?
Yes, I can't see why we wouldn't do this, including because even if things do happen straight away and we suddenly get one side back of parking, there's opportunities for like disability parking that we've heard about. There's opportunities for one of the businesses up one end has contacted us about, wanting more turnover, I think, in their area, or making sure that there's parking reserved for their area. It seems very sensible to me to look at the parking restrictions in and around Elizabeth Street, given the issues that were raised.
Thank you, Councillor Wade. Would anyone like to speak to this motion other than the mover and seconder? No. There's no right of reply. Well, there's no right of reply to amendment anyway. So we'll move that. All those in favour of that amendment? Councillor McKenzie, Councillor Crossland, Councillor Wade. All those against, please raise your hand. Davies, Gomez, Ho, Jolly, Harrison, Aston. That is Not passed. There is another amendment from Councillor Wade. Would you like to get that on the screen, officers, please?
Yep. Oh, sorry. I thought you were
And
going to
just
ask
before
me.
you speak to it, can you just, like Councillor Mackenzie, just explain the gist of it?
Yes, the gist of it is I ran it through officers, so I'm not quite sure the difference between the word final and concept, but the important gist is the consideration for release for community consultation. So it's just to get community input before any permanent design is decided upon.
Thank you. And you've got a seconder, no doubt. Councillor, anyone seconding that? Councillor Crossland, thank you. Councillor Wade, you've got 3 minutes to speak to your
Sorry,
amendment.
Councillor Jolly, Mayor, do I take it that you don't accept this?
I do apologise. Yes, I don't accept it. That's correct. Yep. So, would you like to stand it as a standalone? Move it as a standalone?
Yes, I would.
Yep. And you've got a seconder, so you've got 3 minutes starting now.
Great. So I think, like other people, on the night of the 8th of April, I was trying to comprehend what was in front of us quite quickly. I was focused on the widths because obviously they're quite different to what was in the officer recommendation. What I hadn't appreciated at the start was that community consultation was cut entirely out of the process. I think community consultation is a really important thing. We've just passed a council plan talking about the importance of community consultation, and the idea that we're now going to be designing something and immediately implementing it without talking to anybody, I find quite strange. Community consultation can mean a lot of things. It doesn't mean that the overarching vibe of this motion would be overturned. It could mean exactly the same number of car parking places, but for example, putting in a disabled car park here or there. It could mean, hey, you know what, we actually are willing to lose one car park on this corner because we want to have a tree go up and have some canopy cover for the street. That's one of the things that was in the original prospects for the design of Elizabeth Street, to make a beautiful avenue of trees, like to make one of those roads in Richmond like we get in North Fitzroy and Fitzroy that everybody's always talking about wanting. Like that was the aim of this street, was to create a beautiful place for people. So I think by adding community consultation in, it's basically the least we could do, and it would allow us to address some of those issues, even if the thrust of the rest of this council's vision for more parking is retained. It also means we heard last time about Shelley Street, and that Shelley Street, that intersection was causing issues and that people found it dangerous, like whether on foot, bike, car. We had a gentleman from a business on the corner there come and speak to us about that. To me, it just makes sense to talk to those people and make sure that they're involved in that final design. Whatever that final design looked like, I just can't see why you wouldn't want to talk to your local community about it. And So I'd really recommend my colleagues to support this, just to say let's have that conversation when those designs are underway or done, and see if we've missed anything, because I think almost undoubtedly we will have missed something, and there will be compromises, big or small, that the community are willing to make. So that's why I'm suggesting that we put it out for consultation at whatever point that is. It can be quick. I don't think this is a big deal.
Thank you. Councillor Crossland.
Yes, thank you. As has already been touched on at the last council meeting, we didn't know that motion was coming to us and what those dimensions even were. I'm saying that as someone that is a town planner, transport engineering, and transport planning professional, and it just was like, what on earth are we looking at right now? For anyone that was here in attendance, I'm sure they felt very similar as well. For officers, I know they felt exactly the same. I think it's important that when we're doing something, and as this council keeps saying, consultation is really important. Here's an opportunity to actually engage with the community on something that is quite significant, which resulted in the most submissions that we've had at a council meeting, I think, in the history of the city of Yarra. And then we have something that got flipped on its head at the very last minute. I think the very least we could do is consult the community on a final design. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Crossland. I'll speak against this motion. You've got some cheek talking about consultation, because the whole point of this Elizabeth Street thing was an iterative process, as distinct from what we did at Wellington Street. The reason that Wellington Street bike lane is so good is not only because of its physical dimensions, is because we spent a long time discussing with the businesses, with the residents, with the cyclists, with the public housing tenants at 140 Wellington Street for a long time, probably too long actually, but the one benefit of it was that we got it and everybody supports it. You will not find a single person in Collingwood to this day that has a word bad to say about the Wellington Street bike lane. It's world's best practice. What we did quite consciously at the City of Yarra, was we had an iterative process, which is no consultation. You just do something, see what the public like, ignore their feedback. That's why we got into this mess in the first place. That's why we had the Vietnamese, not only at the 8th, at the last meeting on the 8th, but 2 years ago coming here saying no one's talked to us, no one's discussed us, not at the temple, not at the residence, not at the North Richmond Public Housing Estate. And even though it's a good idea, when it's implemented badly without consultation, you're going to get pushback. So for all of a sudden now, the very same people who said, no, we don't listen to that, we only need, because bringing out a bike lane, it's like world peace. Anyone who's against it is a bad person. We don't want to listen to anyone. And now that they've lost the argument, they've said, oh, no, we have to consult now. They're last minute converts to consultation. I'm not taking that seriously whatsoever. So we've had consultation. For 5 years, the public have had to consult through their own way, through petitions, through coming to this council meeting, through emails, but most importantly, through the election. At that last meeting, the geography of the building told us about the consultation, because those candidates who said, don't worry about the North Richmond residents, just do what we wanted, they were all sitting down there. They were all losers. All the people who said, we're listening to North Richmond, we're listening to the Vietnamese, we want to compromise, they were all sitting up here. Most of them were sitting up here. That is the ultimate consultation, last October. We have to move, we have to put this to bed. Much as I enjoyed myself, I have to tell you, at the last council meeting, and much on a personal level, I would love Elizabeth Street to be discussed for the next 6 years. I had so much fun at the last council meeting. We have to put this to bed. We have to put this to bed, and that is what tonight is all about. Oh, sorry. Would anyone else like to speak to Councillor Wade and Crossland's amendment? No? OK, we'll vote on that. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Councillor Wade, Crossland, Councillor Mackenzie. All those against, please raise your hand. Davies, Gomez, Ho, Jolly, Harrison, Aston, that's lost. We'll move on to the original motion, which is my motion, which has been seconded by Councillor Ho. So I'll just speak to it. If you can just do the 3 minutes. And I'd just like to, I'm not being sarcastic, I have got a tendency when I talk to, not to watch the 3 minutes, so I do appreciate Councillor Wade. And if somebody, I could ask maybe Mr. De Rossi, when I've got 30 seconds to go, if you could just let me know, because sometimes it's hard to self-manage and the power goes to your head and you just keep going. So I've just wasted 20 seconds of my 3 minutes, but I'll keep going. So what this is about, what this motion is about, is the fine detail about the motion that I moved and what was passed at the last council meeting. So number one, bollards rather than a Wellington-style street, a bike path in terms of its physical dimensions. Second of all, permanent, not temporary. Third of all, the consultation we think has been done, it needs to go ahead. Fourth of all, we have to go off to DTP. There's been, I'm not going to say too much because I don't want to tempt fate, but work has begun in that process. If this motion is passed, it goes to the Minister, Gabriel Williams, the Minister for Transport and Planning, and we need her approval. And we get it or we don't get it. If we don't get it, well, we're back to square one. If we do get it, everything in this motion will be implemented, unless she makes suggested changes to this motion. So that's the process from here on in. I ask the councillors to, on that basis, pass this motion. Councillor Howe, would you like to speak to it?
Well, just by letting you know that this have divided North Richmond community and in Yarra. All my asking is not, I don't want to be targeted, say, it's only Vietnamese community. It's a very diverse North Richmond housing where there's other group of minority as well, African, Timorese, Chinese, ethnic, Australian, all in together of this. Every time I look down and walk down, I look each of our eyes, I feel why we have to come to this fighting over sharing parkland. I know it's the safety priority of parkland, and I really do understand safety is our number one. But also there's people who live there so many years, they lost their parking at the front and they feel unsafe too. And I'm not asking for this just because it's over like a political thing, and I don't want to divide it. I've been hearing all the same story about our community want this and want that, but why can't we just share and compromise and reach halfway where we can live in harmony and say, yes, we'll be cautious about this bike lane in front of the house, and people can still park. I'm not asking for any more of this. Since this division have happening, I feel a bit, out of touch of the people who say that, oh, this is their bike lane or this is your park. Let's work it out and compromise. And I'm here to represent these people who are every day walking in there at Elizabeth Street, and this is why they want to be heard. And that's why I spoke on their behalf. That's all I'm asking, and thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, would anyone like to speak to this motion? Anyway, Councillor Gomez.
I'll be quick, Mayor Jolly. I listened to the feedback from the residents last time. I've spoken to many of the residents around North Richmond, and I'm guided by my own experience. I've been a bike rider for 40 years. I know exactly what's good and bad about riding around inner city Melbourne, and I honestly don't understand what the drama is about the proposed changes to the bike lane. We've got worse throughout the city of Melbourne and the city of Yarra. We've got better as well. The point is to share the road, to share our community. Whether you're a bike rider, driver, resident, someone who lives in Kew and rides down through the city of Melbourne, whatever your point of view is, the point is we do need to share the limited resources we have, which in this case is a road. So I commend this motion to my fellow councillors.
Thank you. Any other councillor like to speak? Councillor Deputy Mayor Mackenzie.
Thank you. I do understand what the drama is about this. I read the officer's report, and it was very clear to me in that report that this isn't just a compromise. I think on the face of it, it really does look like one. Everyone gets a little bit of something. But what we actually would be doing is making cycling lanes less safe, removing an ability to put trees in an area that has only an 11% canopy. But last council meeting I spoke a lot about that. I spoke about how we shouldn't have to ask people to be brave to ride, because you, Councillor Gomez, you are an experienced rider. Not everybody who uses our roads are. And if we want people to change the way they move, which we're going to have to as we grow, then, we are going to have to make it safe for them to do so. But I think instead I just want to reflect on the last week and what I've been thinking about bravery. And some of that is political bravery. Because, councillors, politics is not just about the problems we have, it is about the problems we see. And I think in this room and in many rooms like this, we are having fights about what we have, the very little resources we have, when really we should be fighting and thinking and being creative about what's coming, what the future's going to look like. I know that the future is going to be difficult. We are growing. We are a small city, and we are going to have to make these decisions, but we can't expect a 2-car family to become a 1-car family if we don't set up the infrastructure for them to do that. It's why I'm not going to support this. I do hear what people are saying about it. But as I said at the election, when I was voted in, I will make decisions based on the evidence, based on input, and what is best for the community now and into the future. And I think that does take a bit of bravery, because, it's not always popular, but popular isn't always the right thing. I come from a party that is very big looking into the future, light on the hill. That's a Labor Party thing. I have absolutely no issue with not supporting this motion, and I will continue to vote along those lines over the next 4 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Aston.
I'm going to say 2 things. The first is I actually want to take issue with what Councillor Mackenzie has just said there about people being less safe. This is still going to be a protected bike lane. People are still going to be far more protected on this bike lane than they will be on almost any other bike lane in Yarra. I also think that the idea of using women's safety as an excuse for those bike lanes was derogatory towards women. I'm perfectly happy to ride on a road or in a bike lane or wherever I need to ride. Please don't use my femininity as an excuse for bike infrastructure. I just find that utterly diminishing of women's capability. But what I'd really like to say is that after that decision was made at council, and yes, people can have issues with the way in which it was done, but I was invited along to the Buddhist temple on Elizabeth Street as a thank you. And there were many, many members of the community that live along Elizabeth Street and in the surrounds of North Richmond. And it was one of the most gratifying experiences I have had as a councillor. It was people who were affected directly by that decision who were letting us know how they felt about the fact that they had been listened to for the first time in a long time, about the change that this was going to make to their daily experience in the street in which they live. They were not just thankful, not just grateful, but hopeful. They were hopeful that they now had a council that listened and was prepared to take action. And yes, unpopular action, difficult action, but who actually understood that their experience counts. And over the 5 years of consultation, where their views haven't been heard, they are now being represented. And I understand that there are people who don't like that. And yes, sometimes that is politics, I agree. But we are here to represent the people across Yarra, but also the people who live in our wards. And the people who live in Elizabeth Street are in Langridge Ward. They are my people. And like I said, that visit to the Buddhist temple was one of the most gratifying experiences I've had as a councillor. And it really made it worthwhile. So I'm voting for this, obviously, because I want the people of Elizabeth Street to get what they were after, what they had asked for. And yes, you know what, they're not really that big on having lots of trees right now. For them, those things might come later on. But right now, this is what they want, and that's why I'm voting yes.
Thank you. Councillor Harrison.
Last week, I attended a ward meeting for Melba Ward, and what I spoke about there was the need for all of us to share. Whether it's a bike lane, whether it's a park, we need to share. Space is at a premium, and that's just the situation that we are faced with. I heard people talking at the council meeting when the Elizabeth Street bike lane decision was made about having a disability and how difficult it made life for them when they cannot park near their homes. I also heard people talking about the fact that they feel unsafe, very unsafe, because of the issues they face in North Richmond. We have to weigh up everybody's safety, not just the safety of a few. We are having protected bike lanes, but we also need those people to be able to access their properties and park there. I make no apology for that. We actually have to think about other people's needs, not just only our own needs, and that is the key thing that we are going to be facing going forward, is that we simply don't have enough space in Yarra. We must share, and that's the thing that we have to focus on, is thinking about the needs of everyone in the municipality. So I wholeheartedly support this. We've got to find a compromise.
Thank you. Anybody else like to speak? Councillor Crossland.
Thank you. It's honestly really hard to know where to start, because this is a hot mess, to be super clear. I genuinely can't believe we're here again due to a motion that was put up at literally the last minute at our last council meeting without the decency or due process of providing it to officers to review before putting it on the floor, just so it could be checked to make it even make sense. So here we are again. I spoke to near every councillor prior to the last council meeting, and there was no mention of the motion being put. This council says transparency, audit and risk processes are paramount, but actions thus far indicate otherwise. Elizabeth Street forms part of the state government strategic cycling corridor, and it's an important route, not just for those local in Yarra, as we've touched on last time and we all know, but it's for people travelling through Yarra as well. And again, I want to draw attention back to the recently released state government plan for Victoria, the new housing targets that everyone keeps banging on about, but they're not wanting to put the infrastructure in to support that. The state government has made it abundantly clear that car parking will be reviewed and that car light and car free developments will become the norm, particularly in this very precinct. The majority of those people will have to use active transport They'll have to walk, they'll have to cycle, they'll have to catch the tram or the train. They're not going to be driving cars much at all. And we're using very limited road space to prioritise cars over everything else. North Richmond, East Abbotsford and East Richmond around the Victoria Gardens area is one of the areas that will continue to accommodate growth more than most areas throughout Yarra. We already know it's grown by thousands the last few years and it's going to grow by tens of thousands in the years to come. So what does that mean? More people using this corridor every single day. I once again very much acknowledge the concerns about parking and people being able to access the temple. This could have and could still be addressed by reviewing some of the parking on the side streets around there, on the other side of the street as well. But that's not being looked at. We've seen major cities around the world transition their cities. We've seen this through the pandemic and following it, such as London, Paris, Barcelona, New York and Sydney. And we've seen the same approach applied throughout parts of Melbourne that are undergoing major changes and renewal, such as Brunswick, Footscray and Fisherman's Bend. However, what we have in front of us is an outdated outer suburban approach to road space with priority placed on cars. There's no place to accommodate trees. There's no review of parking restrictions around the area and what it could accommodate for the community. There's no plan for community consultation on the permanent design. And as a result, Elizabeth Street will become a much more congested, car-orientated hardscape for the thousands of additional dwellings and residents who will live along it in the very few years ahead of us. And it's not going to be a great future for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Crossland. Would anyone else like to speak? Councillor Wade.
Yes. I'm obviously very disappointed in this motion, and I also would like to address a couple of things that I, again, didn't notice last time around. The fact that we're now talking about bollards rather than about like proper concrete separators means that some of the issues that we're currently having on Elizabeth Street for everybody are still going to happen. So, you know, on the one hand, we had people saying they thought the yellow things were ugly. They're still going to be there. And on the other hand, we had cars parked effectively in the buffer zone, so their car doors reach out into the lane, so it's less safe. So that bollard marker is a really big difference between this motion and all of the officer recommendations, and it's really not a good development. I don't know why we keep talking about how these are safe or safer than or whatever. The officers told us in the report very clearly that they were not safe, that they were dangerous and that the council could be liable. If you think about a car parking over the buffer, which is what a lot of them currently do, we thought long term they were going to be concrete buffers, now no longer, and then their door stretches into the bike lane, there is already not very much room for you to pass. You need to have the foresight of some infinite being to be able to see that car door is going to come out, to be able to skirt it. When these lanes narrow 60 centimetres, that is going to be impossible. That door swoops out into your way. So they're definitively worse bike lanes than I even thought they were on the 8th. With respect to the iterative process, Mayor, I need to correct the record. You keep saying what this council did, what this council did. The only councillor and frankly one of the only members of staff that was around at this point in time was you. If you feel bad for that process, great, you're welcome to say that, but to blame that on others who are not around this table, I think is misleading. Councillor Gomez, you just said we've got worse. What a horrible standard for a bike lane in this city that people are using to get to school, to get to childcare, to get home from work. I'd also like to defend the Deputy Mayor's comments. Saying that women are less likely to cycle when bike lanes are narrow or unsafe is not a slight on women. It is not saying that women are not brave. It's saying the data shows us, and it has shown us all over the world, that women are less likely to cycle when there is not good infrastructure. One of the success stories of these lanes was that more women were cycling. That's a great thing. We don't need to pit that against somebody else. We can celebrate our successes while also saying, hey,
30 seconds.
Maybe we should look at parking restrictions. Maybe we should make other changes. I think looking at evidence and looking at facts when making decisions is something, again, that we all just agreed to in our council plan, and it's not an unreasonable thing to do. I also think to say that there were problems with this process in the past, so this time we're not going to have any consultation whatsoever, is a very strange approach. Lastly, I just...
you're going to have to come to it. You're past your
Okay,
minutes.
last sentence. As far as I've seen, and I'm very happy to have the record corrected on this, nobody got elected on a public statement saying they were going to narrow these bike lanes. Nobody got elected on a public statement saying they were going to rip up any bike lanes. And I'd really like to see who was, because I've had people saying to me, I voted for X person and I had no idea they were going to do this.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak who hasn't spoken? Councillor Davies.
Thank you, Mayor. I wasn't really going to speak, but I just want to make some comments on some of the other councillors' speeches tonight. I just want to thank Councillor Mackenzie, Deputy Mayor, for a university-grade lecture to us tonight. I find it desperately interesting to see what's going to happen to the Labor Party, given that you're the future of what you
Mayor,
described
point of
tonight.
order. This is very pointed.
You can't make a direct attack on another councillor.
My apologies. But the point I'd like to make is there has been consultation with the community. That has happened. As I said last time on the 8th of April, the Vietnamese community was gracious and courteous in their patience with the previous council. I think tonight Councillor Ho demonstrated that again about wanting to find a solution for everyone and a healthy transport mix. I do find it surprising to see that Councillor Wade and Councillor Crossland are still determined to deny the senior citizens of that area access to parking, access to their family, and access to their lifestyle before this was put in. The current suggestion of or the proposal that the Mayor's put up is a balanced solution. It is a solution that's been around for quite a long time. It's really difficult to hear that you just won't respect that local community, that you continue to put politics before people. Tonight is about putting the people of Northern Richmond first. It's putting the Vietnamese community first. It's about putting the working people, Councillor Mackenzie, the working people of Northern Richmond in those housing commissions, doing it hard, struggling through cost of living pressures. It's putting them first, Councillor Mackenzie. That's what it's doing.
Sorry, Mayor, can I just interrupt? These constant points towards different councillors is completely inappropriate.
Yeah, if you can just make your comments without mentioning any of the other 8 councillors,
Okay,
please.
thank you. I wasn't aware of that, so my apologies. That's the point I'd like to make, that we need to bring respect back to the community.
30 seconds.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Davies. I think that's everybody who's spoken, so I'll exercise my right of reply. I think that's really important in politics to have 2 things. One is a sense of humour and one is a sense of proportion. Somebody said that to me a long, long time ago, and I try to keep those 2 things in mind. And I think with this debate, sometimes it's been lost a bit, and I would have to say by both sides to a certain degree in this debate around Elizabeth Street. But when we're looking at those people who disagree with the point of view that, for example, I have, they definitely, in my opinion, have lost a sense of proportion. So what we've done is, with this bicycle lane, we've reduced it slightly, but it's still a dedicated bike lane, as Councillor Ashton said. It's still wider than Albert Street, and yet we're told their safety is at risk. Councillor Mackenzie said that the decision of some families to go from 2 cars to 1 car could be impacted by this. But no one said anything about Albert Street, because that's even narrower again. No one's protesting outside Melbourne Town Hall. Please don't interrupt. No heckling, thank you. It doesn't make any sense. If, for example, we were ripping out the bike lanes, the question of safety for cyclists would be a very bona fide issue to raise. It would be a fair enough issue to raise. But when we're talking about reducing it so small that it's still bigger than Albert Street, and yet they're still saying only this bit, the wider bit is unsafe, we're all going to be potentially impacted negatively, but no one's saying a word about Albert Street. You've got to ask yourself a question. People say, oh, the democracy, the resolution was moved at the last minute. These are people, some of whom went out to the community, thousands of people they went out to, and said to them that we were ripping out every single bike lane, and organised 2 protests at the front. It was a coalition of the liars and the lied to. That's what it was. The last point I want to make is that Councillor Gomez asked the question, he doesn't understand what this is about. What this is about, it's not about bike lanes. Because if it was about bike lanes, the people who are protesting against us would be congratulating us because we're doubling the amount of money on bike expenditure this year and what we're doing at Linear Park. But we know it's not about bike lanes, it's about politics. That's what this is about. And on that basis, I hope you support my motion. Thank you. Okay, we'll have to vote on it now. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Davies, Gomez, Ho, Jolly, Harrison, Aston. Opposed? Deputy Mayor Mackenzie, Councillor Crossland, Councillor Wade. That motion is passed. And on that basis, I close the meeting at 7:55 p.m. Thank you all for coming.